Here we are with SketchUp Layout Part 2. Actually, this is Part 3 if we're counting the what is SketchUp Layout, but I digress. We are on to our Pages and Layers toolbars. I'm going to collapse these guys. If you open your Pages toolbar, some of you will just have inside page, some of you may just have cover page. Mine happens to have inside pages and cover pages. If I click here where it says cover page, just click one time, then it takes me to the cover page. I'm going to hide my grid. I don't really like using a grid. This down here is my title block that came with the template that I chose. I mentioned before we can change our text. Anything that came in our template we can change. I can double click on this. These brackets indicate that this is an auto text. If I want to change the client name here, I can. So maybe the client is me because I'm the best. I can do that. However, if I do that, that will not use an autofill for the client name on subsequent pages. So if I want all of the pages to have the correct client name, I should go into File, Document Setup, and under my auto text, I can find client name, click there, and change this to Rebecca Terpstra, and choose Close. Then it's saved anywhere where it says client name. Project name, same thing, project number, drawn by, issue, etc., etc. I can insert many different types of objects into SketchUp Layout, the beauty of Layout. If I want to insert a CAD file, I can, a spreadsheet, an image, and of course, your SketchUp files. You just go to the File menu, Insert, and find objects you want to insert. Your dialog box here will say insertable content. Sometimes we just want to look for a SketchUp file or a text file. I prefer to keep mine on insertable content. You can see everything that is listed here can be inserted to my layout model. I will choose this image and click Open. I will hold my mouse, click and drag to move it, and show you inserting a CAD plan. It is asking me if I want to import the paper space or the model space. That is CAD's paper space and CAD's model space. Sometimes, depending on the way your CAD drawing is set up, you can only import, I want to say, the model space. I will choose model space. I can change my units, whether they are model space based on the CAD drawing or if I want them to be a different kind of units in my layout file. I'm fine with it being model space. Do I want it to be imported as a SketchUp model reference? No, I do not. So I'll just click Import. It takes a little bit depending on the size of the CAD drawing. And here it is. With it selected, I can see which scale it's in, and I can click and drag and move around. It looks like it had some pretty big arrows happening in that CAD drawing. I can double click to kind of get into edit mode, if you will. Let's see what happens if I try to delete that. Oh, I was able to delete those. I will zoom in. This is a roof plan. And I'm hitting escape to get out of edit mode. Can I scale it down? Yes, I can. That's where we go to our scaled drawing. The scale listed here is also the one listed here. I will change this to be 1/4 inch. Definitely too big for my tabloid sheet. We will go down to 1/16. Notice all of those teeny tiny arrows. That means what? Can you remember what I just taught you in the last video, that means some of the text is not showing. I can click until I'm all the way into that text box and open the text box. Yes, that is a huge pain in the tuchus. So what I would probably do if this were something I was going to actually use on this presentation document or construction document is I would make the text of this CAD drawing not visible, and then I would draw my own leader lines using layouts tools. So that's importing a CAD drawing and then using the scale drawing. With my image file, how I would rescale that is if I want to rescale it proportionately. You've probably done this many times in programs like Word, but you click and hold an arrow and hold down your Shift key so it scales it proportionately. If I don't hold down my Shift key, then I can squish it or unsquish it. What's the opposite of squish? I don't even know. So we definitely want to scale things proportionately. We can move it just by clicking and dragging with that move tool icon that we get. We can copy it just as we did with our shapes. Click and hold down Control key. And then we have 2 copies of the trees. I can click and drag it and snap it to various objects and endpoints. If I want to do away with that, I can right click on it and choose Object Snap. I can lock it so it cannot be moved. And what else do I need to teach you about images? Oh, so you cannot actually crop the image in layout. You can put shapes and other objects over it. So maybe I want to get rid of the star here. I've created a rectangle. All I did was R for rectangle, click and release, click to stop, spacebar, select my rectangle, and then I will have a fill color of white, so then my star is not visible. I don't want the stroke showing, so I will click stroke and choose that one. Well, then it's just missing, and then you can group those objects together. I want to take a look and show you about the references. So now we have our gold Christmas tree. We've got 2 of those. Our materials, symbols, logo. These came with layout, but now my gold Christmas trees are in one file folder, whereas this layout file I have yet to save. So it would behoove me to save this in the same exact spot that my PNG files are. So they stay together in one lumped file. That way, when you send the package to somebody else, they want to work with it, you just send them the entire file and they don't have to worry about drawing references. So something like, you know, a CAD XREF, something like that. You want to keep with the CAD file. If you want to make changes to this image, I can right click on it and, oh, first I got to unlock it. Oops. And I can choose open with image editor. So you cannot actually make changes inside layout. You can open it with the image editor. Maybe I want to crop it. I don't know why I don't like that star, but I really do in real life. I will save a copy. And then nothing happened. Well, that is because I saved it with a brand new name. If I had saved the original copy, then it would have been changed. But now I need to delete this object and then insert my gold Christmas tree cropped. This is very important for you to remember when you are saving a SketchUp model. Sometimes, especially after we've been rendering or something like that, we end up saving our SketchUp model with a new name. This is a really good idea when our files start getting bigger and bigger. If you remember me talking about this, well, I guess if you had me for CAD 115, in order to avoid having a corrupt file, we save our SketchUp the next day with a new name. Maybe it's the new date, something like that. So if you do that, the updates will not show in this layout file because your SketchUp model name changed. I hope you are picking up what I'm putting down when I say that. The other thing I want to liken to Adobe Creative Cloud, I mentioned, the file package, also with the layers. In LayOut, there is a layers toolbar. I'm going to collapse these other ones again. And that is different from the tags in SketchUp, which is one of the reasons why they made SketchUp tags so they could keep layers and layout separate. Layers are likened to Adobe Creative Cloud because whichever layer objects are on, that changes the arrangement order. So for instance, I'm going to make a new layer just using my plus sign, and I will call this tree images. The pencil shows that this is my active layer, just like in SketchUp. I need to change this to my tree images layer. I know it is not on my tree images layer because looking in my layers toolbar, there is a blue box next to default. This tells me the object that I have selected is on the default layer. To change it to the tree images layer, I'm going to select both of them and right click and choose Move to Layer, Tree Images. I'll turn off the visibility of the tree images layer by clicking the eye closed, and there they go. Well, I'm going to move the trees so they're on top of this CAD drawing. They're actually supposed to be behind the CAD drawing, but what can I do about that? Well, all I have to do is click, hold, and drag them so they are underneath the default layer that the CAD drawing is on. I should probably put the CAD drawing on a CAD layer. With it selected, you can see it is on the default layer because there's that blue box next to it. But it did go, did make it so the CAD layer was underneath my tree images. Could even move them other places. So taking a look at your layers toolbar, just know that the order, this is the top tier. Unique elements are underneath whatever is on the default layer, cover page, so on and so forth. Some of these, it doesn't matter which order they're in. And if you don't know what the cover page is, you can close the eye. That gets rid of my title block here on my cover page. Unique elements, I close that eye. You can't really see anything here, so that must have to do with other pages. So there were already some layers in there. Do you need to keep the layers that were already created for you? No, you do not. You can change the name. Maybe I want cover page to be title block, cover title block. There's also something called on every inside page. And over to the right, I can turn the visibility on and off. It is not shown on the cover page because this is supposed to be only for inside pages. Next to it is a lock. We can lock all objects on this layer. I'm going to unlock it. And the final thing to look at is the very last thing. You can control whether the layer is shared across all pages. You will notice there are multiple pages in this icon, whereas on this one there is just a single page. So let's go back to our Pages toolbar and click Inside Page. If I turn off the objects on every inside page, let's see what it gets rid of. It got rid of almost everything in our title block. If I add a new page, click the plus sign, and now there's page 3. Everything here went away because the objects on page 2 were not supposed to be part of every inside page. I can make that happen either by moving these objects to that on every inside page layer. So then when I go to page 3, it's there. Or I can create a new layer, and I'll name this one Dimensions. And over on the far right, I will click that single page so it changes to multiple pages. And I will move this group to Dimensions. I'll look at page 3, and sure enough, just those sort of dimensions are on the next page. Something else I can do is duplicate a page. I want everything on this page to be on another page. So with that page highlighted, click this middle icon, which is duplicate page. And now page 4 looks exactly like page 2. I want page 4, however, to be underneath page 3. So I will click, drag, and let go. Here's page 2, page 3, page 4. Take a look at the numbering system here. Page 4 shows it's page 3. Page 3 shows page 2 or sheet 2, and inside page shows sheet 1, because in our document setup page, we wanted the numbering to start on the inside page. That is why the number symbol is here next to inside page, because that is where the numbering starts. You can create tables. Clicking and dragging. I can choose how many columns and how many rows. You look down in the lower right hand corner, just like with the VCB, it says columns, comma, rows, 7C, comma, 7R. So maybe if I type 8C, comma, 6R, enter, click, there we go. So I need to click after that. You can then add text inside here. I'm just going to double click and it automatically becomes a text box. This is A. I'll tab over to B, C, D, so on and so forth. I can add numbers. And you can change the sizing of these. If I want to stretch out my table, I can. If I want to stretch out a particular row, I can do that. And there you have tables. When you have something selected, notice how my table is highlighted in red, but when I select this square, it's highlighted in blue. Highlighting it in red is an inference that tells me that this object is going to be on every inside page. Looking over at my layers toolbar, Dimensions has a little red dot, and that's an inference of this layer. Everything on this layer is on every inside page. When it's blue, it's not on every inside page. It's just on this one particular page. If you do not want your table on every inside page, you can move it to a layer, or you can actually create a new layer, name this table, select the object and move it to my table. And now it is highlighted in blue. I am going to move this around, and my table is now on top of my dimensions because my dimensions is underneath table. Right click on it and choose arrange and send to back. But that didn't change anything. I need to then click on my dimensions and right click and choose bring to front. Well, that still didn't change anything. That has to do with how the layers are arranged here. I will click and drag dimensions up, and then that fixed the problem. Now, what if they are on the same layer, but you want them arranged differently? That's where that arrange will work. I'm going to send this one to the back, and now it is behind the square. I didn't even need to choose arrange, bring to front, because it worked that one way. Sometimes you will have to do both, so just be aware of that. So right now my page 4 is almost exactly the same as page 2. It did not change because I did not make these objects the same on every inside page. So just be cognizant of that. If you wanted something here to change and here, you will need to make sure that you either reduplicate the page, or something you can do is delete that object. This is something really great with layout. I'm going to select them and choose Control C for copy, go back to page 4, and then do a Control V or edit paste. It pastes in the exact same place that it was on the other page. So that's a really great feature of layout. I've decided I no longer want these dimensions on page 4. They're on page 3, they're on page 2, but I no longer want them on page 4. I can get rid of them a couple of different ways. One is to click on it and then hit delete. I'm going to undo that. Another is to turn off the visibility to that layer on this sheet. Well, what happens on other sheets? It is still there. We just only change the visibility to it on this layer, on this page. That's what I was trying to say. We just changed the visibility to it on page 4 only. Let me show you what happens when you delete it. If you delete it, I have decided I no longer want the dimensions on this page. I still want them on page 3 and page 2, but I don't want them on page 4. So I'm just going to select it and hit delete. Well, looking at page 3 and page 2, they're not there any longer. So I should undo that to bring them back. And on page 4, where I do not want them showing, I will turn off the layer. Go to page 3, it's still there. Page 2, it's also still there. So you can format these per sheet. You want to be very careful with your layers, just like you have to be in SketchUp. So you don't want to have a layer for everything, right? Typically, you will have a default. You always have to have a default. You can have a text layer for labels, other text that's not part of your title block. That includes your drawing titles, your north arrow, your schedules and notes. FF&E, sometimes I need to show the images of items to my clients on the drawing. Room names, I don't want these to be visible on some pages, on some sheets, so they have their own layer. Dimensions, hidden lines, they can be the same sometimes. Elevations and details, which are SketchUp model viewports, and model name. So for stacked viewports, I name the layer for what it is. So this is the second floor, first floor, so on and so forth. I always have a title block because this whole unique elements thing really just throws me off. And of course, my cover page, branding, and sometimes borders. For some models, or excuse me, for some projects, I might add more layers, sometimes less. Just all depends on what I have going on. If you want to delete a page, that is very simple. Just click on the page, make sure it's highlighted, and click the minus button, and then it's gone. You will notice that there is no warning box for that, so be very careful that that's actually one that you want to get rid of. All right. Let's work on the SketchUp file for the SketchUp practice file so you can see how SketchUp works with layout. Open up your SketchUp file called layout practice file, and then go back to layout. Get rid of this here. And we are going to insert the SketchUp file. So File, insert, and find where that file is saved and click open. On mine, nothing is showing up, and I do have that warning symbol. We will be working with our SketchUp model toolbar, and you will see that warning sign there as well. You need to click render anytime you see that warning symbol. Click render, and there we have our SketchUp model. You can resize the viewport, so maybe I don't want it to be such a big viewport. To be careful, sometimes things get cut off. I'm going to double click. My cursor is now orbit, so I'm actually orbiting the SketchUp model so I can get the exact view I want. And then I will click outside that viewport. With it selected, I can choose to reset all. I can choose a scene. Maybe I want a south elevation. Well, I do not see a south elevation, but I also do have this warning box, so I will choose render. And this does not appear to be an elevation view, so that makes me think, was this set up incorrectly? I will go back to my SketchUp model and choose south elevation. No, that actually is a south elevation. Well, you have to, with it selected, you need to go down to the camera area inside your SketchUp model toolbar. This needs to be ortho or orthographic or two-dimensional view because that's what an elevation view is. So click ortho, we'll get the warning box, click render, and still we're not getting that south elevation view. And what happened is I need to choose one of these standard views. Is it a front view? Nope. Is it a back view? Nope. Is it a right view? Nope. Left view? Yes. So you might have to do a little bit of working to get this right. So we can, as you've already seen, you can get into model space. You can zoom, but you cannot make any changes. Let's say I wanted to add a color to this. You cannot do that within LayOut. I will need to go to my SketchUp model. I'm going to add some kind of color to it. And then make sure you save. You need to save your SketchUp model. We'll go back to LayOut. Nothing happens. Right click on that viewport and choose Update Model Reference. It's asking me to render it. I see the red there. I will choose my left view and render and make my viewport a little bit bigger. I can even get inside it and pan it so it's centered inside my viewport. I don't like that there is that gray background or grayish blue background in there. I would like it to be completely white. That looks better on a construction document. So rather than going back into SketchUp and changing the background style, I can actually do that for my SketchUp model toolbar. With the SketchUp model selected, and we're in SketchUp model toolbar, choose style, excuse me. Just one of these styles toolbars. Choose default styles, and I will use this one shaded with textures. It has a white background. Click render, and there, that looks much better. I will move this down, make my viewport a little bit smaller. And because this is a two-dimensional view, I can make this a specific size. If it was a three-dimensional view, we couldn't do that, if you remember that from CAD 115. But because it's a two-dimensional view, we can use a specific size. I will choose scale, drop down here, and we'll make this 1/8 of an inch. And click render. Boy, that's tiny. Did not think that one through, did I? We'll do 1/2 inch, and click render. I'll need to make my viewport a little bit bigger. And my mantle area keeps getting bigger. Well, what happened was I did not choose preserve scale on resize. So I will click that, find my 1/2 inch scale again and click render. And because that's checked, now I can change my viewport size, render again, and then move this. Another great thing that you can do is you can turn, I'm gonna close the styles here. You can turn off tags that you don't want to see. I want to get rid of the north walls, maybe even the floor. I'll click render. So anytime you make a change to this viewport, you will need to re-render. I'm hoping you are picking that up. The last thing I want to point out is the vector raster hybrid dropdown. In layout, vector is great for showing detailed SketchUp lines, but it does not show the full texture potential. Raster shows the texture better, but the edges tend to look a little bit choppy and sometimes pixelated. Hybrid is what we want to use, but don't choose this option until you're done with the entire drawing so it does not run slowly. Now that our viewport is set up the way we want, we need to create viewports for the other scene tabs. You do not need to go to File, Insert. You can do a copy and a paste, and that creates a second viewport. You could also duplicate your page. Well, page 5 now has 2 viewports as well. The final thing we need to add to this are some drawing titles. Go to Scrapbooks. This is our very last toolbar that we have not looked at besides Instructor, but I'm not going to show you that. Click the drop down. There's arrows, cars, colors, people, signs, and then everything that says TB is a title block. Choose any one of these arrows, and then we'll do 3-dimensional curved. If you click an object and release your mouse and then move your mouse to layout and click and release, that arrow is now something that you can select and move and change the color, the stroke of. There are cars. If you want to add a car to a garage area. By the way, all these cars are really, really old school, so just beware of that. There are people. And then again, those title blocks. So choose any one of these title blocks and click to see various things. If you don't get out of the command, so to speak, without hitting spacebar, then you can create multiples of these. Some of them have north arrows, some of them have scales, some of them have various things like a revision cloud. You can manipulate these. I want to change this, so rather than revision 10, this is revision 1. You can change anything you want that's provided for you in layout. Layout is just flippin' awesome. So there we go. So take a few minutes to peruse these items in scrapbooks. They are really cool. You can edit anything in there, and you can even create your own objects and add to your own scrapbooks library. There's a lot more that I can show you, but this is a great start for you to get going on your own template. Please read through the supplement, read the book, and click on the links in the supplement for help. You can also YouTube a plethora of videos or LinkedIn Learning. So now it's time for you to play around a little bit on your own and then go read through the very first assignment, which is LayOut. Have fun using this amazing tool, this amazing program, and be ready for questions on the assignment and LayOut at our next meeting. I hope you all are well and that you enjoy using LayOut and learning more about SketchUp. As always, I'm here for you when you need me. Bye for now.